Hey guys, and welcome to Paper Made Me Do It, the intersection of all things paper and pen for planners, journalers, and artists at heart. If you are already subscribed to my channel, welcome back and thank you. If you are new here, welcome. I hope you would consider subscribing to my channel and joining me for future videos of all things paper and pen. In this video, I will be sharing the Eversharp Luxury Symphony 707 fountain pen. It is a vintage fountain pen that I recently purchased, and I will be going over the specs of the pen as well as some thoughts about the website where I purchased the pen. I will ink the pen in this video and give kind of a messy writing sample initially, and then give a little more thorough, neater writing sample at the very end, set to music. But before I get into this particular pen, I did also want to give you an update on a recent purchase that I made, because I did post a video on it as well. I recently purchased the Conklin Duraflex limited edition matte black with rose gold trim fountain pen. It was a new purchase that I made from Goulet Pens, and I have a video on my channel where I did a writing sample with that pen. It wrote beautifully, and I absolutely loved the way that that pen looked. But an update includes some bad news and then some good news. The bad news is that after owning that pen for approximately 1 week, I was using it to address Christmas cards last month, and as I said, the pen wrote beautifully. I loved the flex nib on that pen, but after about a week, I was using it to address a Christmas card, and I noticed something along the barrel of the pen that looked like a speck of dust, something kind of whitish, and I used my fingernail to try to, or actually not my fingernail, but just use my finger to kind of swipe that dust off the barrel, and in doing so, another white mark came up. And at that point, I did use my fingernail, not roughly, but very lightly, to try to wipe that substance off. And I realized at that time that the white color was actually, I guess, what should have been the protective coating on that matte black finish. And it basically started to dissolve any very, very light brush against the barrel in that area just started taking the finish completely off, and you could see an open edge around the area with the matte black showing underneath. So it was a very disappointing flaw. That is the bad news. The good news is that I had purchased that pen from Goulet Pens here in the US. I've made several purchases from Goulet over the years and never had any problems in the past. So I did reach out to their customer service department and explained what had happened. And I also attached a few pictures of the area on the body of the pen that I had taken with the camera on my phone. And the good news is that the customer service department of Goulet Pens responded very promptly. They were shocked at what was happening, and they did apologize, even though it wasn't directly their fault. They gave me the option to either exchange the pen for another pen, to get a store credit, or to get a refund on my payment from purchasing the pen. So they did send me a shipping label for a free return. I returned the pen to them, and I chose to simply get a refund on that purchase. So hopefully that was a fluke and not something that we'll be seeing commonly with that pen, because it was a beautiful pen that wrote very nicely. So I hate that that happened with that pen, but thank you to Goulet Pens for making the return a smooth process. So back to this Eversharp pen. This, because I had to return the Conklin, is now the only flex fountain pen in my collection. And spoiler alert before the review, I absolutely love this pen. So I actually have no negative remarks to make in any way about this pen. I will go over the specs of the pen, and I'll be reading from the notes that I printed from the website where I purchased the pen. This is an, as I said, Eversharp Luxury Symphony 707 fountain pen. The description stated that it has a gold-plated cap, colored barrel, which is black, and a 14-karat flexible nib. I believe it is a flex fine. It was also described as new, old stock, and restored. The general description on the website is Eversharp Symphony 3rd generation, model number 707, also known as the Luxury Symphony, with colored barrel, 14-karat gold nib, new old stock, but restored with a new sack, cleaned and adjusted, near perfect condition with a few tiny flecks of pitting on the cap. And I will show you the cap up close in this video so you can see what they are referring to. You actually have to very closely inspect the cap to see what they're talking about. But there are some extremely fine, I would say like micro fine areas of light scratching on the barrel. And with this being a new old stock pen, I'm assuming that's just from so many years of storage and possibly transport. It's my understanding that with a new old stock pen, that means that the pen is in fact old. However, it was never purchased by an individual, so it does not have a previous owner and was not used prior to my purchase. So on the website, when you scroll down further beyond the general description of the pen, they give more details of the description, and I'll read through that quickly. It was described as a lever fill fountain pen. I'll talk more about that in a minute also. It stated that this is from the 3rd generation. Okay, I will come back to that since I'm doing a voiceover here. My timing is a little off. I want to jump back to the description of the cap because here I'm showing you a close-up version of the cap of the pen. You can see again some of those what I would call just micro scratches here and there, but if you can see near my finger at the very edge of the cap, I'm assuming that is what they are referring to as pitting. It's an extremely minor flaw that doesn't bother me a bit, but it was disclosed in the description of the pen. So back to the detailed description. It was from the 3rd generation series of Symphony pens. This is the lower end model 707, and they called it Luxury Symphony. It was the only model with a gold plated cap. So with this being described as a low-end model, I would love to be able to get my hands on a higher-end model someday, because this pen performs very well for me. I love everything about it, so it does not feel low-end or cheap to me. That's just my personal opinion, but I realize that description is relative to other generations or other models within the line. The manufacturer of this pen is Eversharp USA, and the year is circa 1949. The length is 5 3/8 inches, and here I'm showing you the filling system, which is a lever filler. They installed a new sack, And I was initially a little skeptical about purchasing a lever fill pen simply because I've never owned one before. All of my other pens are either a built-in piston fill or a converter cartridge pen piston fill. I do own one TWSBI vac fill that I do not care for. It's just an awkward struggle for me to do the vac fill mechanism in that pen. So I was a bit wary about purchasing a new filling system that I wasn't familiar with, but the lever fill has been extremely easy to use, and now it's actually my preferred mechanism for filling. So later in the video I'll actually demonstrate the lever fill process. So the color was described as a colored barrel with a gold-plated cap, clip, and lever. Because they use the term barrels, period, I can only assume that this body may have originally been available in more than one color. However, the website that I purchased the pen from only offered the barrel in black, which was fine with me because black tends to be my color of choice these days anyway. The nib is described as a 14-karat gold nib with nice everyday flexibility, and they do have a writing sample graphic on the website. This is the smaller size Symphony nib, the same nib we see on the 713/913 Symphony pens. So I'm wondering if the 713 and 913 are not considered like higher end models of this line, since this 707 was described as a lower end model. The condition was described as new old stock condition with a few pen size flecks and pitting on the cap. But overall, the pen is very sharp looking and shiny. I do agree. It was resacked and polished, and nibs adjusted to write beautifully, fully guaranteed. So here I'm just trying to show a little close-up of the nib itself. It is a fairly simple design. It has that heart-shaped breather opening, and it has Eversharp in all caps in an arch across the top, and it does have 14K stamped onto the nib. So those are the specs of the pen. I'd like to say a few things about the website where I purchased the pen. I recently have kind of gone down the rabbit hole of the vintage fountain pen world, and that is thanks to another YouTuber that I recently discovered. Her channel name is Adventure Denali, and I will either link it in the cards and or the description of this video in case you'd like to check her out. But she turned me on to the possibility of purchasing vintage fountain pens. It's not something I had ever considered before, primarily because I live in a somewhat rural area and there are no brick and mortar fountain pen shops anywhere near me. So I had never had the opportunity to hold or use a vintage fountain pen and wasn't familiar with a lot of the terminology that was used in describing vintage fountain pens. But she mentioned in one of her videos that she had made a purchase from Peyton Street Pens. So I went to their website, peytonstreetpens.com. I will link it in the description also. I believe the owner's name is Terry. She always, I'm assuming based on the way she spells her name that it's a woman. If it's a man, I apologize. But she always includes a little handwritten thank you with her receipt. And I have looked at some other websites in the meantime that also sell vintage fountain pens. And what I really love about Peyton Street Pens and what continues to bring me back to that website is the fact that I feel like she gives the most thorough and detailed and honest description of the condition of the pens. She also uses a little bit looser rating scale in her first general description, using words like very good condition, excellent, excellent plus, near mint, mint, etc. So after you kind of familiarize yourself with her website and her descriptions, you'll start to recognize what she considers criteria for each of those categories. The very good description, in my opinion, falls on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of those pens may have slightly more wear or flaws. But what I do appreciate is she discloses whatever that condition is in great detail. And she also gives close-up pictures if there is any flaw disclosed, so you can see and be able to tell kind of what you're getting into before you purchase the pen up front. She also includes a discount code when you make a purchase from her to be used on a future purchase. And I will show here in the video some freebies that she sends with her pens, which I was pleasantly surprised with my first order because I was not expecting any additional free product to come with my order. I've ordered from her 3 times now and not had any problems whatsoever. Her shipping is ridiculously prompt, and in terms of customer service, I've not had any problems with my 3 purchases I've made so far, so I've not had to use her customer service directly. But I did have a friend who purchased 2 pens from her in one order, and one pen was much smaller than she anticipated. Now, the size of the pen is listed in the description, but you know, guys, sometimes it's hard unless you just get out a ruler. Sometimes it's hard to visualize what size is. So it's not that there was anything wrong with the pen, but it was actually a mini version of a fountain pen, and that was disclosed in the description. But when my friend received the order, it was much smaller than her taste and what she realized it would be. So she did contact Peyton Street Pen's customer service department, and from what she described to me, it was a very pleasant experience. She did take the pen back with no problem whatsoever, so she was able to ship it. And I'm not sure if she got a refund or did an exchange, but her customer service, from what I've heard so far, is top-notch. Now, these are the freebies that I mentioned earlier that came with my 3 orders. As I said, I was not expecting these, so I was pleasantly surprised when I received my first order, and she included this Schaefer rollerball ballpoint. And in my second order, she included this gold mechanical pencil. I believe it's a Schaefer, and it coordinated with the style of the second pen that I purchased, so super nice. And then in my third order, which is the pen we're reviewing today, she included an Eversharp mechanical pencil that has the same exact style of the fountain pen that I ordered. So I was not expecting that at all, but it is in excellent condition as well and fully functional, so I ended up with a very nice little set here. So I just can't say enough good things about her website. I've had an excellent experience so far. So now let's ink this baby up and do a little writing. The paper I'm using is a Rhodia Dot book. This is something that I had picked up a while back at my local Michael's. It is about 8 1/4 inch square, and it is a spiral bound notebook that has excellent quality paper. I use it all the time, specifically for this purpose. It's kind of my messy play notebook where I test fountain pens, just do handwriting samples just for the fun of it and test out different inks and so forth. Now this is that lever mechanism that I was initially a bit scared of just because I was unfamiliar with it. You can see there's a little divot toward the end of the lever that allows you to get underneath it and open it. All you do is dip your nib and feed down into the ink, open the lever, and then close it back shut. It is unbelievably easy. When you open the lever, that compresses the interior sac, and then when you close it, that allows the opening of the sac to draw the ink up into it, similar to the same mechanism as a piston filler when it's, what is that, negative pressure? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be a physicist here, but you know what I mean. So here we go. We've got the nib and feed down in the ink. You can see you can easily open the lever. It comes out to about a 90-degree angle. And then when you do close it, sorry, my hand's kind of in the way. When you do begin to press it close, it immediately snaps back very quickly. So you don't have to put the pressure throughout the whole arc to close the lever. Once you break that 90 degrees toward the body of the pen, the lever will snap back quickly on its own. And from what I've learned in watching some other YouTube videos about how to fill a lever fill pen, it is good practice after you pop the lever closed again to let the nib just remain in the ink for a few seconds, just to make sure that you are drawing up as much ink as possible. Now, I'm not sure if doing this process once would be sufficient, because I usually repeat the process 2 or 3 times with the piston fill. I've kind of just out of habit repeated this lever fill process 2 or 3 times as well, just to make sure I'm getting as much ink capacity as possible. Now that I've learned how to use this, the lever fill has become my favorite filling mechanism. It is just as easy, if not easier, to fill than a piston fill. And what I do love about it is it's a much quicker process, so you're not having to sit there and just twist and twist and twist and twist and then untwist and twist and repeat and so forth. It's extremely quick and easy, and I have no idea in terms of measurement what the ink capacity of this pen is, but it has a very decent, respectable ink capacity. I've been using this pen non-stop since I received it, and this is the first time I've had to refill it. Now we're going to get into a couple different writing samples. In this first sample, I have sped up the writing to 2 times of real time, and this is going to be kind of just a messy writing sample where I show a few different things. Here you can see some nice line variation in the first word, but I also wanted to show that if you just use a lighter, you know, everyday consistent pressure, the words luxury, Symphony 707, you can see that you don't get the thick variation that you do when you press down on the flex. So even though this is a flex pen, because it's kind of a stiff flex nib in a good way, it also makes a really nice everyday writer. So I'm going to go through this kind of messy sample, as I said, and then I will follow it up with a little bit nicer writing sample in real time, and I will set that to music. So let me thank you in advance for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.